Today we're going to discuss 5 brutal but true reasons why finding love is so difficult for some people. Look, this isn't an accusation. This is a journey of awareness. Will it hurt? Maybe a little. Will it shake you? Absolutely. But will it ultimately set you free? I believe this with all my heart. Because only when we face the truth in its naked, sometimes painful form, can we break free from those illusions, those fairy tales we tell ourselves. And only then can we attract a real, authentic love with solid roots into our lives. So why do some people struggle so much to find that love? Why does that happiness seem to be served on a silver platter to others while you're always searching, always waiting? Here are those 5 fundamental, crucial reasons. First reason: unfinished grief and ghosts of the past. Those open accounts. This is very, very important. Look at what I'm going to tell you. That thing called the past isn't a room you can simply leave behind and close the door on. Especially if it contains unfinished stories, unmourned losses, unforgiven hurts. That room seeps into your entire life, all your relationships, without you even realizing it. The ghost of an ex-lover. Your father's approval he never gave. Your mother's affection she left incomplete. These are shadows living in your subconscious, breathing, constantly whispering. Jung calls this the dark side of the shadow archetype. Whatever you reject, whatever you suppress, whatever you're afraid to face comes and stands before you at the most unexpected time. In the most unlikely relationship. Imagine you were cheated on in your previous relationship. You experienced that pain, yes. But did you really mourn that betrayal, that abandonment? Or did you immediately try to throw yourself into another harbor? Did you pray for someone to come along and make you forget your pain? That unfinished grief, that undigested pain weaves an invisible armor around your heart. When a new person appears before you, that armor kicks in before you even know them. A voice inside screams, "Watch out, the same thing will happen again." That voice is actually the voice of the past. That voice is the voice of your old wounds. Even though you consciously want to turn a new page, your subconscious is still fighting in that old battlefield. Still battling those old enemies, or perhaps something was left incomplete in that first bond you formed with your mother or father in childhood. Maybe you felt you weren't loved enough, weren't seen enough. That deep emptiness inside that little child comes with you when you grow up. And you desperately search for a savior to fill that emptiness. In every new relationship, you actually pursue completing that missing parental love, that incomplete childhood tale. But no one is obligated to heal your childhood wounds. No one has to be your mother or father. This expectation constantly disappoints you. They say the old ledger must close before a new one opens. That's so true. Without facing those ghosts of the past, without making peace with them, without closing those unfinished accounts, it's impossible to make room for a healthy new relationship. It's like trying to plant new seedlings without clearing a garden. Those weeds, those old roots won't allow new sprouts to grow. Now honestly ask yourself, what unfinished grief do I carry inside? What shadows of old hurts still loom over me? What ghosts of the past are whispering in my ear? Recognizing these, even if painful, is the first step to freedom. Facing those shadows, talking to them, maybe crying, maybe writing, but no longer running from them. That's when that battlefield inside you begins to transform into a peaceful garden. That's when real space opens up for new love. Remember, mourning isn't weakness, it's a healing process. Allow that pain. Let it flow through you. Because only then does your heart truly lighten and become ready to say yes to new love. In our culture, especially for men, there are patterns like real men don't cry, stay strong, right? For women too, there's pressure to pull yourself together quickly, move on with your life. These all push us to suppress grief, to avoid facing that pain. Even when a loved one passes, we just say, "May God give you patience," and move on. But within that patience is actually living that pain, digesting that loss. The same applies to a love that ends. That too is a loss. Its grief must also be mourned. Otherwise, that loss descends like a nightmare on the next relationship. I had a client. 3 relationships in a row had ended with infidelity. She was crying, asking, "Is there something wrong with me?" When we went deep, we saw that she had never experienced the pain, the anger, the disappointment of that first betrayal. She had immediately thrown herself into another relationship. Actually, in her subconscious, she was constantly recreating the repetition of that first betrayal, until that client faced that first wound. Until she mourned that first wound, forgave herself, and released that cheating person in her inner world, even without seeing them. This vicious cycle continued. When she made peace with that shadow, that suppressed anger and pain, that's when someone who truly loved her, valued her, entered her life. Because she was no longer afraid. She was no longer punishing herself. That's why I say, facing those ghosts of the past, closing those open accounts is essential. Otherwise, they become the biggest saboteurs of your love life without you even realizing it. Second reason, unrealistic idealization. And that famous white knight princess myth. The soulmate delusion. Now we've come to one of the most common, most insidious traps. We all have an ideal partner portrait in our minds, don't we? Height should be like this, eye color like that, profession this, interests these. The list goes on. But who wrote this list? Did you really write it? Or are these seeds planted in your subconscious by society? The movies you watch, the fairy tales you read? Carl Jung says, every man has within him a feminine archetype called the Anima. Every woman has within her a masculine archetype called the Animus. These are internal images that shape our relationship with the opposite sex. Our expectations. In a healthy individuation process, we meet these internal archetypes, understand them, and integrate with them. But if this process isn't completed, that's when we project this anima or animus unhealthily onto people outside. In other words, we search for that idealized, incomplete feminine or masculine part within ourselves in the person before us. I'm looking for my soulmate. How often do we hear this phrase, right? As if somewhere there's a magical person created for us, who will complete us perfectly, fill all our gaps. This is precisely the most obvious example of that unhealthy anima or animus projection. While you search for that perfect person, you're actually searching for that emptiness inside yourself, that missing piece, that idealized internal figure. But no one was created to fulfill your personal fantasies, your unattainable expectations. Everyone is whole within themselves, a hero on their own journey, those white knight or princess waiting to be rescued fairy tales. These have become so ingrained in our subconscious that we struggle to connect with real people, with all their flaws, all their realities. Someone appears before us. A few characteristics match that idealized picture in our heads. We immediately say, this is it. Then time passes. We see that person is also human, has mistakes, weaknesses, different expectations than yours. And that initial spell breaks. Disappointment begins. So this wasn't the right person either, we say and set sail. But the problem isn't with that person. The problem is with our unrealistic expectations, that illusion of perfection in our heads. And of course there's the persona issue. Our social mask. The fake identity we wear out of fear of, what will people say? My spouse should be like this so people around me will admire me, envy me. When you choose someone with this mindset, you're not actually choosing. Your fake mask, your persona is choosing. But what about the real you beneath that mask, that child inside, that fragile soul? What about their desires, their longings? Where are they? Relationships built with that persona are usually superficial, hollow, and ultimately end in disappointment. Because the foundation is fake. The foundation is built on getting others' approval. Look, now I'm going to tell you a painful truth. There's no such thing as eternal love at first sight. like in movies and novels. That's a trick your mind plays on you. Real love isn't found in an instant, it's built. It requires effort, patience, sacrifice. It grows when two people see each other in complete nakedness, with all their flaws, accept each other, and still choose to love. But you're pushing away everyone who doesn't fit that perfect scenario in your head with the back of your hand. Think about Turkish TV series. How many tell the impossible love story of a rich, handsome man and a poor but proud girl, or vice versa? What do you think these scenarios plant in our subconscious? Love should be like this. Full of obstacles but ultimately reaching a happy ending miraculously. Is real life like this? No, in real life, both sides need to work, communicate, compromise to overcome those obstacles. Miracles don't descend from heaven in baskets. So what will you do? First, you'll tear up and throw away that ideal spouse list in your head. Yes, you heard right. Tear it up and throw it away. Then you'll turn inward. You'll try to get to know that anima or animus inside you. You'll look at what they're whispering to you, what needs, what fears they're reflecting. You'll make peace with your own feminine or masculine energy. Imagine a person who can't be self-sufficient, who ties their own happiness to someone else. What kind of expectations do they have in a relationship? They constantly expect attention, constantly expect approval, constantly expect assurance. Like a vampire, they drain their partner's energy. And this eventually suffocates, ends that relationship. Real and healthy love is a journey two whole people embark on together without losing their own individuality, staying in their own centers. They support each other, learn from each other, grow together. But they don't become dependent on each other. They don't become each other's everything. Because they know everyone's everything is first within themselves. Is this individuation journey easy? Never. On the contrary, it's very painful. Facing your shadows, stepping out of your comfort zone, saying no to social expectations, showing the courage to be alone. These require courage, patience, determination. But at the end of this journey, that internal wholeness you reach, that freedom, that state of being at peace with yourself is worth everything. Look at what I'm going to tell you. Many people say, I'm afraid of loneliness. But what they're actually afraid of isn't loneliness. It's being left alone with themselves. Facing that emptiness inside them, that silence. Because in that silence, all those pains they've suppressed, all those fears, all those regrets surface. That's why they're constantly in a state of escape. They take refuge in a relationship, a job, an addiction. But the more they run, the bigger that emptiness inside grows. But that loneliness is actually a very valuable teacher. In that loneliness, you learn to listen to yourself, recognize your own needs, discover that strength within yourself. When you learn to be self-sufficient, you enter a relationship out of choice, not need. That's when the relationship you build becomes much healthier, much freer, much more fulfilling. Love isn't two half people completing each other. Love is two whole people coming together and creating an even greater whole together. If you haven't found your own music yet, can't dance to your own rhythm, who can you harmoniously dance with? You first need to find that song inside yourself. Take your own steps. That's why I say, don't flee from that individuation journey. Don't be afraid of turning inward, of facing your own truths. Because the path to finding real love passes through first cultivating that love within yourself. When you know your own worth, when you meet your own center, when you reach your own wholeness, you'll see that the love you're searching for will naturally begin to flow toward you. You'll become a magnet. You'll attract that healthy, balanced love that helps you grow. As you can see, dear fellow traveler, the difficulty of finding love isn't actually fate. It's a result of those unresolved knots within you, those patterns you're unaware of, those truths you avoid facing, those unfinished griefs, those unrealistic idealizations, those fears of intimacy, that value you don't give yourself. And that flight from the individuation journey, these 5 fundamental reasons, may be keeping your doors to love tightly closed. But the good news is, untying these knots, breaking these patterns, opening these doors is in your hands. No one can take this journey for you. No one can do this internal work for you. But you're not alone. This awareness, these insights, this first step you're taking will be your greatest helper. So what's the solution, you ask? The solution, even if painful, is to courageously look at yourself. To face those ghosts of the past, to make peace with them. To set aside those perfectionist expectations in your head and give real people, with all their flaws, a chance. To get to the root of that fear of intimacy and compassionately embrace that wounded child inside. To know your own worth above all else. And to silence that merciless judge inside and approach yourself with love. And most importantly, to fearlessly continue on that individuation journey of your own. To find your own center. To integrate within yourself. Now take a deep breath. I know everything I've told you has touched somewhere in your mind, your soul. Maybe some hurt you. Maybe some made you say, that's it. Whatever you felt, feel it, it's all acceptable. Because this is your moment of meeting your own truth. Don't continue with your life the same way after this content. Take these awarenesses, put them in your pocket, and take a step, even a small one, every day on that path of internal transformation. Pay attention to your dreams. They'll whisper messages to you from your subconscious. Pay attention to those meaningful coincidences in your life, those synchronicities. The universe may be trying to guide you, and most importantly, never stop being honest with yourself. Real love naturally flows into your life when you reach your own wholeness. When you discover that spring of love within yourself, you become the magnet. Love is drawn to you. Believe this, because this is one of the most fundamental laws of the universe. You attract what you are, not what you want. First become that love within. Then watch how those beauties flow into your life. If you want to walk with me on this journey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Every week I'm here with content that descends into the depths of your soul, helps you face your shadows, sheds light on the mysterious world of your subconscious. If you want to discover the power of your mind, break free from your emotional chains, reveal your true potential, hit that subscribe button and join me on this magical discovery journey. Remember, knowledge multiplies when shared. Goodness grows when spread. Hitting the like button takes just a second, but is a huge source of motivation for us, like a giant applause. That little like helps us touch more people's hearts. Now come to the comments and share the truth that touched you most in this video. Maybe you can write, I am the hero of my own love story and I'm starting now. Or that insight that shook you most deeply. Write this, repeat it inside, and feel that moment's emotion in every cell. Because this is your new truth from this moment on, your new roadmap. So what do you think about this shocking topic? What are your own experiences, your own shadows, your own victories? Which reason touched you most? What step have you decided to take? Share with us in the comments. Remember, you are the architect of your own destiny. That brush and that canvas are in your hands. Until we embark on a new journey toward another depth of your soul in the next content, take very, very good care of yourself. Shine with your light. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. Be with me on this transformation journey. Let's continue to meet every week. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and be part of this great change. Farewell. Only then can you look at people outside with a more realistic, more compassionate eye. Only then can you love someone not because they're your soulmate, but because they're whole within themselves, willing to grow, learn, and share with you. Remember, there's no perfect love. There's real love, and real love is beautiful with its flaws. Just like you, just like me, just like all of us. Third reason, fear of intimacy and attachment issues. Those don't come close walls. This is one of the deepest, most hidden wounds. Most of us consciously want to love, be loved, build a close relationship. But whenever someone truly tries to touch our heart, enter that most intimate room inside us, we suddenly withdraw for no apparent reason. We build walls. We even engage in behaviors that sabotage the relationship. Why? Because in our subconscious, in those depths, we're deathly afraid of intimacy, closeness, attachment. The roots of this fear usually go back very far. To our childhood years, to those first attachment experiences. Maybe you were abandoned, maybe neglected, maybe criticized, maybe you grew up with emotionally unreachable parents. That little child made a promise to themselves back then. I will never be hurt this much again. And that promise became your biggest obstacle in adulthood. Jung's shadow archetype is at work here again. That suppressed, that rejected fear of abandonment, that feeling of worthlessness, that belief of inadequacy, all hidden in that shadow. And whenever someone gets too close to you, that shadow suddenly comes alive. Danger, run, you'll get hurt again. It sounds the alarm bells. Even though you consciously say, yes, I love this person, I want to be with them, that wounded child inside you, that inner voice enslaved by the shadow hits the brakes. One part of you screams, love me, embrace me, don't leave me alone, while the other part builds walls saying, don't come close. I don't trust, I'll be disappointed again. My heart will be shattered again. Without this internal war ending, without these conflicting internal voices quieting, how can you find a peaceful, safe harbor outside? There's a situation we often encounter in relationships, the pursuer-distancer dynamic. One side constantly seeks attention, demands intimacy. The other constantly flees, creates distance. This is actually different manifestations of both sides' attachment fears. The pursuer clings out of fear of abandonment. The distancer withdraws out of fear of suffocation, losing their freedom. But both are actually afraid of real intimacy, that mutual surrender. I had a client named Ake. She was a beautiful, intelligent, successful woman. But her relationships never worked out. Whenever someone truly started to value her, plan a serious future with her, Ake would find an excuse and escape from that relationship. She presented reasons like, I got bored, they weren't right for me. There was no spark between us. But when we went deep, we saw that Ike's father had left home when she was little, and deep in Ike's subconscious, a belief had taken root, I'm not worthy of being loved. Everyone I love abandons me. So when someone truly started to love her, that old wound was triggered. They'll abandon me anyway. I'd better run before they leave, so I'll hurt less. She'd think, her shadow, that abandoned little girl, was sabotaging her happiness. So how is this fear of intimacy overcome? First, everything starts with recognizing this fear. Honestly asking yourself, what am I really afraid of? Rejection? Abandonment? Losing control? Not being able to be myself? You need to get to the root of these fears, face those old wounds. Maybe get professional support. Talk to that wounded child inside. Show them compassion. Remember, real intimacy begins when you lower your walls. Real love sprouts when you dare to take risks. Yes, there's always a risk of getting hurt. But without taking that risk, without breaking down those walls, without opening the doors of your heart, you can't truly let anyone into your life. And believe me, when you open those doors, the love that enters will be much bigger, much more valuable than the risk you took. Don't be afraid to face your fears, because behind your fears lies that great freedom and that deep love waiting for you. When you start breaking down those walls one by one, you'll see that you're not as vulnerable as you feared. You're actually much stronger than you thought. Fourth reason, not knowing your own worth and self-sabotage. That merciless critic inside. Now we've come to a point where perhaps most of our biggest dilemmas lie hidden. How much do you value yourself? How much do you love yourself? How much do you believe you deserve? The answers to these questions directly determine the quality of your love life, because if you don't give yourself that value, why would anyone else? If you don't love yourself, why would anyone else love you? This is at the very heart of Jung's quest to reach that supreme self in the individuation journey. That real, authentic, unique potential within us. But unfortunately, most of us have fallen so far from that self that the critic inside, that voice that likes nothing, constantly finds fault, whispers, "You're inadequate. You're ugly, you're stupid. No one really loves you," has become our greatest enemy. This feeling of worthlessness usually begins in childhood. Children who are constantly criticized, compared, not validated, continue to feel worthless when they grow up. And this feeling of worthlessness constantly shows itself in their relationships. A person who doesn't value themselves unconsciously chooses partners who will treat them badly, make them feel worthless. Because in their subconscious is the belief, "I only deserve this much." They're so accustomed to settling for crumbs that when a whole loaf of bread is offered, they push it back saying, "This is too much for me. I don't deserve this." Or the opposite happens. They're so afraid of facing that worthlessness that they enter a constant quest for approval. They try to please everyone. They give up their own desires, their own boundaries, just to not be abandoned, just to be loved. But this too is slavery. This too isn't real love. This is a dependency built on fear, self-sabotage. What a painful thing this is, isn't it? Just when everything's about to work out, just when you're about to capture that happiness, you destroy everything with your own hands. Because that voice inside says, "You don't deserve to be happy." Or it makes prophecies like, "This happiness is too much. There's definitely something wrong. Everything will fall apart soon." And to make that prophecy come true, you unconsciously do everything. Think about it. Whenever something good is happening, does an anxiety, a fear of "when will this end," emerge inside you? Whenever someone says something nice to you, do you suspect, do they want something from me? These are the voices of that part of you that doesn't believe in yourself, doesn't trust yourself, doesn't love yourself. So how do you get out of this cycle of not knowing your own worth, this self-sabotage? First, by recognizing the voice of that merciless critic inside, realizing it doesn't belong to you, that it's an imposed, learned voice. And then by saying, "Stop," to that voice, trying to develop a compassionate, understanding, supportive inner voice in its place. Everything starts with taking good care of yourself, taking good care of your body, soul, mind, staying away from people and environments that aren't good for you, drawing your own boundaries, learning to say no, celebrating your own achievements, even small ones, complimenting yourself, seeing not your flaws but your unique beauty when you look in the mirror. Remember, you came into this world as unique. There's no other like you. Just as your fingerprint is unique, so is your soul. You're valuable just as you are. You're worthy of being loved. You deserve to be happy. The moment you feel this truth in your bones, that's when the people you attract into your life will also begin to reflect this value to you. That self-sabotaging vicious cycle will break. Fifth reason, fleeing from the individuation journey and that famous "I can't exist without the other" delusion. Losing your own center. This is one of the most critical crossroads where everything we've talked about converges. Individuation, the fundamental pillar of Jung's analytical psychology. What is this individuation? In simplest terms, it's the process of a person bringing together all those scattered pieces, shedding those social masks, those suppressed shadows, those healthy projections of opposite-sex archetypes within, and reaching their own authentic, unique self. In other words, it's the journey of finding the deepest, most authentic answer to the question, "Who am I?" So what does this individuation journey have to do with love? A lot, in fact, everything. Because without first becoming whole within yourself, without meeting your own center, without learning to stand firmly on your own 2 feet, how can you build a healthy, balanced relationship that unites 2 wholes with someone else? Most of us, to escape the pains of this individuation journey, to fill that emptiness inside ourselves, that feeling of loneliness, search for another. We see love almost like a life raft. We wait saying, let someone come save me, complete me, make me happy. But love isn't a patch to mend your own deficiencies. Love isn't a painkiller to ease your existential pains either. If you're not happy within yourself, if you're not peaceful within yourself, if you're not whole within yourself, no external relationship, no other can make you lastingly happy, peaceful, whole. On the contrary, you carry that emptiness inside yourself, that chaos inside yourself into the new relationship. And that relationship becomes a reflection of your own deficiencies, your own problems,